Have you ever wondered what would happen if China decided to cut off the world's access to a crucial resource? One that powers almost everything from smartphones to fighter jets. Well, that's exactly what's happening right now. China has started implementing export controls on rare earth elements, and it's sending shockwaves through industries across the globe, especially in the United States. Rare earths may not sound exciting, but they're literally the lifeblood of modern technology. Without them, electric cars don't move, smartphones don't work, and clean energy doesn't exist. For decades, China has been quietly building its dominance in this field, and now it's using that power strategically. The US, on the other hand, is suddenly realizing how vulnerable it is. In this video, we'll break down how China built its rare earth empire, why it decided to restrict exports, and what this means for America's tech and defense industries. Let's dive in. What are rare earth elements and why they matter? So, first off, what exactly are rare earth elements and why is everyone talking about them? Rare earth elements are a group of 17 metals that are essential to modern technology. They're used in things like electric car motors, wind turbines, hard drives, and even medical equipment. They've got weird names like neodymium, dysprosium, and lanthanum, but don't let that scare you. These are the elements that make our tech world spin. To give you a clearer picture, the magnets inside your phone's speakers or vibration motor are made from rare earths. The electric motor in a Tesla, also powered by rare earth magnets. The same goes for the guidance systems in American fighter jets and missiles. Basically, without rare earths, much of our modern life would grind to a halt. But here's the catch. Mining and refining these materials is extremely complicated and messy. It's not like gold or copper, where you dig and sell. Extracting rare earths involves toxic chemicals, radioactive byproducts, and a lot of environmental damage. That's why most countries gave up on it years ago. And this is where China stepped in. China's dominance in rare earth production. China's dominance in the rare earth industry didn't happen overnight. It was a carefully planned strategy that started decades ago. As far back as the 1980s, Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping famously said, "The Middle East has oil, China has rare earths." That statement wasn't just talk, it became policy. Fast forward to today, and China controls about 60% of the world's rare earth mining and an incredible 90% of rare earth processing. That means almost every smartphone, electric car, and fighter jet in the world relies on Chinese materials at some stage of production. Meanwhile, the United States used to be a leader in rare earths. Back in the 1980s, a mine in California called Mountain Pass was the world's top producer. But environmental concerns, high labor costs, and tougher regulations caused the US to shut it down. China, on the other hand, kept expanding its operations, offering cheaper prices and building state-of-the-art refining facilities. By the 2000s, China had taken over the entire supply chain, from mining to refining and even recycling. Western companies loved it because they could buy rare earths cheaply without worrying about pollution or complex regulations. But that short-term convenience came at a price: total dependency. Today, China doesn't just mine rare earths, it processes and refines almost all of them. Other countries may have rare earth deposits, but without the technology and infrastructure to refine them, they're useless. China understood this decades ago and positioned itself as the world's rare earth superpower. And now, it's starting to flex that muscle. The impact of China's export controls. And recently, China announced it was tightening export controls on certain rare earths, especially those used in semiconductor manufacturing and defense technology. This move sent shockwaves through global markets. Overnight, prices of some rare earths jumped by more than 30%, and tech companies in the US started to panic. Why? Because the United States, the world's most technologically advanced nation, relies heavily on China for these materials. Take electric vehicles, for example. A single electric car requires up to 2 kilograms of neodymium and 500 grams of dysprosium for its motor. The US simply doesn't have the capacity to supply these on its own. Companies like Tesla and GM are now facing higher production costs. If China limits exports further, these costs could skyrocket, making EVs more expensive and slowing down America's clean energy transition. Tesla even announced plans to redesign motors to reduce dependence on rare earths, but that's easier said than done. Apple is another major player feeling the pressure. Every iPhone contains around 16 of the 17 rare earth elements, from the tiny magnets and speakers to the camera stabilization system. China's export restrictions could disrupt Apple's entire supply chain, and since most of Apple's assembly lines are still in China, it's not a problem that can be solved overnight. The situation is even more alarming for the US military. Advanced fighter jets, drones, and missile systems all depend on rare earths. The Pentagon has warned for years that the US is dangerously reliant on China for these materials. In fact, a 2022 report by the US Department of Defense stated that 80% of America's rare earth imports come directly from China. With these new export controls, China isn't just targeting one sector, it's hitting the foundation of America's technological and military power. And from China's perspective, it's not even about being aggressive, it's about protecting its own strategic interests. After all, when the US blocks China from accessing advanced semiconductors, it's only fair for China to use its strengths in return. The geopolitical tensions, US-China tech war. The rare earth issue is really just one front in the larger US-China tech war. For years, Washington has been trying to contain China's rise in advanced technologies. From banning Huawei to restricting chip exports, the US has made it clear that it doesn't want China leading in sectors like 5G, AI, and electric vehicles. But here's the irony. While America dominates in high-end chip design, China dominates the materials needed to make those chips. Rare earths are used in chip production equipment, magnets for robotics, and even in quantum computing technologies. So in a way, both countries are locked in a kind of technological stalemate, each holding a card the other desperately needs. China's export controls are its response to what it sees as unfair US restrictions. When Washington cut off China's access to advanced chips from companies like Nvidia, Beijing didn't retaliate with words. It retaliated with minerals. By controlling rare earth exports, China can directly impact the production of high-end US technologies, from smartphones to satellites. And this strategy is working. American companies are now lobbying the government to ease tensions with China because they realize how intertwined the two economies are. You can't build an iPhone or a Tesla without China's materials, no matter how advanced your technology is. Meanwhile, China is expanding its influence even further through the Belt and Road Initiative. It's investing in rare earth mining projects across Africa, South America, and Asia. By doing so, China is building a global network of resource partners, while the US is still trying to reopen old mines and rebuild its domestic industry. It's a stark contrast. While the US focuses on short-term politics, China plays the long game, securing resources, investing in infrastructure, and ensuring that when it comes to critical materials, it's always one step ahead. Potential solutions and consequences for the US. So, can the US escape this dependence? Technically, yes, but not anytime soon. There are three main ways America could respond: mining more at home, recycling old electronics, or developing alternatives. Let's start with mining. The Mountain Pass mine in California has reopened, and it's producing rare earths again. But there's a catch. Even today, the mine sends its ore to China for processing. Why? Because the US doesn't have the refining technology or the environmental tolerance to do it domestically. Building that capability would take billions of dollars and several years. Then there's recycling. Every old smartphone, laptop, and wind turbine contains small amounts of rare earths that could, in theory, be recovered and reused. But recycling rare earths is expensive and inefficient. As of 2024, less than 1% of rare earths worldwide are recycled. So while it's a promising idea, it's not yet a realistic solution. Finally, the US is trying to find substitutes, new materials that can replace rare earths in technology. But developing and commercializing these alternatives could take a decade or more. In the meantime, China will continue to dominate. The truth is, America's dependence on China for rare earths is not just an economic issue, it's a strategic vulnerability. If tensions between the two nations escalate and China decides to further restrict exports, the US could face serious setbacks in everything from electric vehicles to national defense. From China's perspective, these export controls aren't an act of aggression, they're an act of protection. For years, China supplied the world with cheap rare earths while dealing with the pollution and environmental damage that came with it. Now that it's finally asserting control over its resources, some in the West see it as a threat. But maybe it's just China's turn to set the rules. At the end of the day, China's rare earth ban is more than just a trade story. It's a power shift. It shows that the age of Western dominance in global supply chains is ending, and a new era is beginning, one where China controls the materials that make the modern world possible. While the US scrambles to rebuild its rare earth industry, China continues to innovate, invest, and expand globally. It's a reminder that economic power today doesn't come only from technology, it comes from controlling the resources behind it. So the big question is, can the US adapt fast enough? Or has China already won the next chapter of the tech war? So what do you think? Do you agree with our video? Tell us what you think by leaving your comments below. And if you like what you watched, make sure to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to show your support.